Hello, welcome to day of reading through the Bible. I'm Toni Henderson-Mayers. I'll be your reader. I'm known as an actor, a director, producer, professor, but most important, I'm a child of God. And I'm also known as an entrepreneur too, as well. If you want to know more about me, join my Toni Henderson-Mayers YouTube channel. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe and ring the notification bell for that channel and this one so you'll know every time I upload a new video. So, you ready to read God's word? Let's go. Okay, we are going to read the rest of Esther, Esther 6 through 10. Let's read. I believe it's 6 through 10. Mordecai honored. That night, the king could not sleep, so he ordered the book of the Chronicles, the record of his reign, to be brought in and read to him. It was found recorded there that Mordecai had exposed Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's officers who guarded the doorway, who had conspired to assassinate King Xerxes. What honor and recognition has Mordecai received for this? The king asked. Nothing has been done for him, his attendants answered. The king said, Who is in the court? Now Haman had just entered the outer court of the palace to speak to the king about impaling Mordecai on the pole he had set up for him. His attendants answered, Haman is standing in the court. Bring him in, the king ordered. When Haman entered, the king asked him, What should be done for the man the king delights to honor? Now Haman thought to himself, Who is there that the king would rather honor than me? So he answered the king, For the man the king delights to honor, have them bring a royal robe the king has worn, and a horse the king has ridden, one with a royal crest placed on its head. Then let the robe and horse be entrusted to one of the king's most noble princes. Let them robe the man the king delights to honor, and lead him on the horse through the city streets, proclaiming before him, This is what is done for the man the king delights to honor. Go at once, the king commanded Haman. Get the robe and the horse, and do just as you have suggested for Mordecai the Jew, who sits at the king's gate. Do not neglect anything you have recommended. So Haman got the robe and the horse. He robed Mordecai and led him on horseback through the city streets, proclaiming before him, This is what is done for the man the king delights to honor. Afterward, Mordecai returned to the king's gate, but Haman rushed home with his head covered in grief and told Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends everything that had happened to him. His advisors and his wife Zeresh said to him, Since Mordecai, before whom your downfall has started, is of Jewish origin, you cannot stand against him. You will surely come to ruin. While they were still talking with him, the king's eunuchs arrived and hurried Haman away to the banquet Esther had prepared. Chapter 7. Haman impaled. So the king and Haman went to Queen Esther's banquet, and as they were drinking wine on the second day, the king asked again, Queen Esther, what is your petition? You're scandalous, child. This is scandalous. It will be given you. What is your petition? It will be given you. What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be granted. Then Queen Esther answered, If I have found favor with you, your majesty, and if it pleases you, grant me my life. This is my petition, and spare my people. This is my request. For I and my people have been sold to destroy, killed, and annihilated. If we have merely been sold as male and female slaves, I would have kept quiet, because no such distress would justify disturbing the king. King Xerxes asked Queen Esther, "Who is he? Where is he, the man who has dared to do such a thing?" Esther said, "An adversary, an enemy, this vile Haman." Then Haman was terrified before the king and queen. The king got up in a rage, left his wine, and went out into the palace garden. But Haman, realizing that the king had already decided his fate, stayed behind to beg Queen Esther for his life. Just as the king returned from the palace garden to the banquet hall, Haman was falling on the couch where Esther was reclining. Okay. The king exclaimed, "Will he even, will he?" Sorry, guys, I got a little bit of a cold, but this line got me laughing. Okay, let's back up a little bit. Okay, where we at? But Haman, realizing that the king had already decided his fate, stayed behind to beg Queen Esther for his life. Okay, we're on verse 8 of chapter 7. Just as the king returned from the palace garden to the banquet hall, Haman was falling on the couch where Esther was reclining. The king exclaimed, "Will he even molest the queen while she is with me in the house?" Haman is not having a good day, y'all. As soon as the word left the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Then Harbona, one of the eunuchs attending the king, said, "A pole reaching to a height of 50 cubits stands by Haman's house." He had set it up for Mordecai, who spoke up to help the king. The king said, "Impale him on it." So they impaled Haman on the pole he had set up for Mordecai. Then the king's fury subsided. Chapter 8. The king's edict on behalf of the Jews. That same day, King Xerxes gave Queen Esther the estate of Haman, the enemy of the Jews, and Mordecai came into the presence of the king, for Esther had told how he was related to her. The king took off his signet ring, which he had reclaimed from Haman, and presented it to Mordecai, and Esther appointed him over Haman's estate. Esther again pleaded with the king, falling at his feet and weeping. She begged him to put an end to the evil plan of Haman, the Agagite, and which he had devised against the Jews. Then the king extended the gold scepter to Esther, and she arose and stood before him. "If it pleases the king," she said, "and if he regards me with favor and thinks it the right thing to do, and if he is pleased with me, let an order be written overruling the dispatches that Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, devised and wrote to destroy the Jews in all the king's provinces. For how can I bear to see disaster fall on my people? How can I bear to see the destruction of my family?" King Xerxes replied to Queen Esther and said to Mordecai the Jew, "Because Haman attacked the Jews, I have given his estate to Esther, and they have impaled him on the pole he set up. Now write another decree in the king's name and in behalf of the Jews, as seems best to you, and seal it with the king's signet ring. For no document written in the king's name and sealed with his ring can be revoked." At once the royal secretaries were summoned on the 23rd day of the third month, the month of Sivan, or Sivan. They wrote out all Mordecai's orders to the Jews and to the satraps, governors, and nobles of the 127 provinces stretching from India to Cush. These orders were written in the script of each province and the language of each people, and also to the Jews in their own script and language. Mordecai wrote in the name of King Xerxes, sealed the dispatches with the king's signet ring, and sent them by mounted couriers who rode fast horses, especially bred for the king. The king's edict granted the Jews in every city the right to assemble and protect themselves, to destroy, kill, and annihilate the armed men of any nationality or province who might attack them and their women and their children, and their women and children, and to plunder the property of their enemies. The day appointed for the Jews to do this in all the provinces of King Xerxes was the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar. A copy of the text of the edict was to be issued as law in every province and made known to the people of every nationality, so that the Jews would be ready on that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. The couriers riding the royal horses went out spurred on by the king's command, and the edict was issued in the in the citadel of Susa. The triumph of the Jews. When Mordecai left the king's presence, he was wearing royal garments of blue and white, a large crown of gold, and a purple robe of fine linen. And the city of Susa held a joyous celebration. For the Jews, it was a time of happiness and joy and gladness and honor. In every province and in every city to which the edict of the king came, there was joy and gladness among the Jews, with feasting and celebrating. And many people of other nationalities became Jews because fear of the Jews had seized them. Chapter 9. On the 13th day of the 12th month of Adar, the edict commanded by the king was to be carried out. On this day, the enemies of the Jews had hoped to overpower them, but now the tables were turned and the Jews got the upper hand over those who hated them. The Jews assembled in their cities in all the provinces of King Xerxes to attack those determined to destroy them. No one could stand against them because the people of all the other nationalities were afraid of them. And all the nobles of the provinces, the satraps, the governors, and the king's administration helped the Jews because fear of Mordecai had seized them. Mordecai was prominent in the palace. His reputation spread throughout the provinces, and he became more and more powerful. The Jews struck down all their enemies with the sword, killing and destroying them, and they did what they pleased to those who hated them. In the citadel of Susa, the Jews killed and destroyed 500 men. They also killed Parshandatha, Dalphon, Aspatha, Poratha, Ad, Adalia, Aradatha, Parmasta, Arsai, Arida, and Vizatha, the 10 sons of Haman, son of Hamathiatha, the enemy of the Jews. But they did not lay their hands on the plunder. The number of those killed in the citadel of Susa was reported to the king that same day. The king said to Queen Esther, "The Jews have killed and destroyed 500 men and the 10 sons of Haman in the citadel of Susa. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now, what is your petition? It will be given you. What is your request? It will also be granted." "If it pleases the king," Esther answered, "give the Jews in Susa permission to carry out this day's edicts tomorrow also, and let Haman's 10 sons be impaled on poles." So the king commanded that this be done. An edict was issued in Susa, and they impaled the 10 sons of Haman. The Jews in Susa came together on the 14th day of the month of Adar, and they put to death in Susa 300 men, but they did not lay their hands on their plunder. Meanwhile, the remainder of the Jews who were in the king's provinces also assembled to protect themselves and get relief from their enemies. They killed 75,000 of them, but did not lay their hands on the plunder. This happened on the 13th day of the month of Adar, and on the 14th they rested and made it a day of feasting and joy. The Jews in Susa, however, had assembled on the 13th and 14th, and then on the 15th they rested and made it a day of feasting and joy. That is why rural Jews, those living in villages, observe the 14th of the month of Adar as a day of joy and feasting, a day for giving presents to each other. Purim established. Mordecai recorded these events, and he sent letters to all the Jews throughout the provinces of King Xerxes, near and far, to have them celebrate annually the 14th and 15th days of the month of Adar as the time when the Jews got relief from their enemies, and as the month when their sorrow was turned into joy and their mourning into a day of celebration. He wrote them to observe the days as days of feasting and joy and giving presents of food to one another and gifts to the poor. So the Jews agreed to continue the celebration they had begun, doing what Mordecai had written to them. Well, Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had plotted against the Jews to destroy them and had the cast, the pur, that is the lot, for their ruin and destruction. But when the plot came to the king's attention, he issued written orders that the evil scheme Haman had devised against the Jews should come back onto his own head, and that he and his sons should be impaled on poles. Therefore, the days were called Purim, from the word pure. Because of everything written in this letter, and because of what they had seen and what they had happened to them, the Jews took it on themselves to establish the custom that they and their descendants and all who join them should without fail observe these 2 days every year in the way prescribed and at the time appointed. These days should be remembered and observed in every generation by every family and in every province and in every city. And these days of Purim should never fail to be celebrated by the Jews, nor should the memory of these days die out among their descendants. So Queen Esther, daughter of Abihail, along with Mordecai the Jew, wrote with full authority to confirm this second letter concerning Purim. And Mordecai sent letters to all the Jews in the 127 provinces of Xerxes' kingdom, words of goodwill and assurance to establish these days of Purim at their designated time, as Mordecai the Jew and Queen Esther had decreed for them, and as they had established for themselves and their descendants in regard to their times of fasting and lamentation. Esther's decree confirmed these regulations about Purim, and it was written down in the records. Chapter 10 is our last chapter reading for today. The greatness of Mordecai. King Xerxes imposed tribute throughout the entire, King Xerxes imposed tribute throughout the empire to its distant shores, and all his acts of power and might, together with a full account of the greatness of Mordecai, whom the king had promoted. Are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Media and Persia? Mordecai the Jew was second in rank to King Xerxes, preeminent among the Jews, and held in high esteem by his many fellow Jews, because he worked for the good of his people and spoke up for the welfare of all the Jews. Ooh, may the Lord add a blessing to the reading and hearing of his holy word. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you know every time I upload a new video. Well, we finished up the book of Esther, and I'm telling you, it was action-packed from beginning to end. Excuse me. I'm still getting over what I had. No fever or sickness like that, but just congestion. So y'all continue to pray for me. We don't know who wrote the book of Esther. That's what we talked about on the last time. But it's certainly action-packed, all about Esther, Mordecai, King Xerxes, Haman. Every person that's mentioned in this is perfect for a movie. You got your nemesis, you got your antagonist, you got your hero, your shero. I mean, it's just awesome. So you find that Esther and Mordecai were put in place for such a time as this, to really help their people and to protect them from imminent doom. Mordecai was honored. As we open up the chapter, we found out that he did something wonderful for the former king. Let's see, early on in the chapter, chapter 6, verse 2, it was found recorded that Mordecai had exposed, I hope you want to say Big Papa, Big Thana, and Teresh, two of the king's officials who guarded the doorway, who had conspired to assassinate King Xerxes. And when King Xerxes found out he was not given proper recognition for that, he wanted to make sure that happened. He asked Haman, "What do you think should happen to someone who, looks out for the king?" And Haman did not know that he had looked at Mordecai's record, right? And he thought it was all about him, child. He thought it was all about him being elevated. The king was thinking of someone else, right? And so he started talking about all these things that you should do to honor the man that looked out for you, thinking that he was the one, right? But when later he finds out is Mordecai, his arch enemy, the person he hates for no reason at all, he has to humble himself and give this man the honor when he secretly wanted to have this man killed. So, dear ones, that's a lesson in of itself that someone may be out to kill you, may be out to get you, but you keep living and doing according to God's will, and He'll turn that whole thing around. What did the Bible say? He'll make your enemies your footstool. Oh my gosh. And we know a footstool is used to stand on to get up higher. And that certainly happened in this case. Um, and then Queen Esther is still in the mix under the tutelage and guidance of Mordecai. And at that same time, it was time now for them to go to the banquet that Esther had given. Because remember, we were reading before, she was feeding him and getting him ready between her beauty, honey, her soft speech, and her ability to get some food on the table. Okay. Um, that softened the king. And we have to look, good wives. I said good wives. We know what to do, okay? We know this technique, all right? Um, it's something about a beautiful woman. I know that sometimes we malign that because no woman wants to just be known for her beauty and her beauty alone. But in this case, we see that her beauty was used and her good nature right behind that. Because when we started off Esther, Queen of Vashti was very beautiful. But honey, she had an attitude. Okay. So attitude and beauty don't go together. You gotta have the goal is you have to be as good inside as you look on the outside, right? And we find in this instance that no matter what God gives you, it can be used for his glory, all right? It can definitely be used. And in this instance, this was the best way to get to the king. Now, he had a whole bunch of wives, honey, and concubines, all right? He didn't need another wife. And I know all of them look good, but it was something about Esther. She must have been, because we saw the beauty pageant early on. We read about it. She must have been knocking all of them out the box. Okay. Okay, Queen Esther. They said she had a nice shape too. But that'll get the brothers every time. Brothers, y'all can say amen in the comment. Okay, it's all right. We still holy. You can still put that in the comment section. A nice smile, nice shape, and some beauty. That'll get them every time. But if you got a wonderful, wonderful personality and you are willing to be trained and talked to, she loved Mordecai. He was her adoptive father, you know. He took care of her and she respected him and trusted his guidance. And because all of this all worked out to bless their people. So, because of her request at this banquet, she finally told him her request. Um, he was more than willing to help her out to save her people. But when he wanted to find out now who is setting this all up for people to be killed, and when she said, "Haman," honey, I said this could be such a great a movie because it was action packed. Okay, can you imagine sitting at this banquet and you chewing on a piece of chicken, and then she said, "That's the man right there that started all the trouble." Honey, I would have choked. Okay, but he got on his knees and he was he begging her so bad because the king got mad and went out. Right? We just read it, but for those who are watching this segment of the video and have not read it, you need to read this chapter. Okay, it's good. You need to read Esther 6 through 10, the whole book of Esther. It's just so good. And so he gets to begging and pleading so hard that he falls onto the couch that she laying on. And I just got so tickled because the king was already hot. And when he came in, he's like, okay, so now you gonna molest my woman? Oh no, oh no. Ah, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Y'all tell me what y'all think about this reading. I just love it. And so in other words, just to kind of wrap it up, I don't want the video to be too long, but basically, an edict was written and signed with the king's signet ring, which Mordecai had, because Mordecai had got all this honor, glory. He was elevated in the kingdom. And so they were able to rectify and undo what Haman did. And so his family was killed, the house and everything was given to Mordecai. The Jews were able to protect themselves against those that came against them, which they did have to fight against and kill several people that were trying to come against them. But then people started to fear them because they knew that they believed in the one true God. And they ended it with a celebration with Purim. And that whole celebration was to remember how God brought them through and that the Jews themselves were not completely destroyed. And so what a blessing. What a blessing. I love reading the book of Esther and the very fact that we've read about a lot of different women in the book, but there are certain ones that actually books are named after, like Ruth, like Esther. And it's just so significant what they brought to the table with the resources they had given to them by God. Maybe in this day and age, it may not be about our beauty. For many, it will, but it may be some other way that we will serve the Lord and bring about a difference. So nothing is too great and nothing is too small. Nothing is too insignificant. Whatever you have, you are to use it for God and for God's glory. Well, make sure you visit me on my website, which is www.tonihendersonmayers.com. Guys, I'm so proud of you. Stick in there. I see so many new people subscribing, so make sure you subscribe to the channel. Ring that notification bell. You'll know every time I upload a new video. If you don't want that many notifications, just subscribe, child. Subscribe. Okay. All right, darlings. Just know that the word of God is a lamp unto our feet. It is a light unto our path. We will hide God's word in our hearts that we may not sin against God. You take care, and I will see you tomorrow, God willing. Bye. Hey there, thank you so much for checking out my video, and I want you to check out my website at ToniHenderson-Mayers.com. You can find out about me in film and stage. You can also find out about the wise courtship philosophy and everything that that I do, speaking across the country, and the book that I've written. And of course, you can go on to my online store where you can learn a lot of information about business, get coaching sessions, online courses, and so much more. Not only that, I have an Etsy store, which the website of all of these things are in my description. So make sure you go to my Etsy shop, which is called Faith, Hope, and Love Center. Make sure you go to that so you can get t-shirts, and I'm adding things every day, t-shirts, mugs, masks, all types of things, into the link that's going to take you to all of the books that we're using pretty much in our Read Through the Bible series. So here are the journals. This reflection journal is so that you can write and take notes. This one has a lot of study information and will help you keep organized as you're studying the Bible. This is the Bible that I read from, the NIV Study Bible. Of course, Wise Courtship is here, and some of the other books that I wrote. Yes, God is Real, and also I Rise, Stories of Triumph. It's just a great encouragement tool. So walk on over to the stores and give us some support. I think you're going to be blessed by the products. Take care.